Hi, I'm Duncan.
And I'm Paul.
We run the Terror on Tyne Film Festival. It's a northeast-based UK horror short film festival.
And this is TerrorCast, a Terror on Tyne podcast. This is a show all about conversations with creatives from the northeast of England and beyond, with a particular focus on their work within the horror genre.
Today we are thrilled to be joined by writer, director, general, artist, good guy, Clive Tonge.
Thank you. Yeah, I like general. The general.
We're here with the general.
There you go.
Clive the general. There we go.
So yeah, thanks for joining us today on the podcast. And just, I guess, to get straight into the conversation that we're going to have, in terms of, I always like to start just at the very beginning. So for you, where did your interest in filmmaking come from? Because I know you've kind of dabbled in a lot of different sort of forms of art when you were kind of growing up, like with photography, music, sort of poster design.
Yeah.
What was your journey from all of that to kind of becoming more identified as a filmmaker? So,
as a kid, I loved horror. I always loved horror. Lifelong horror fan. I don't know why. 99% of it's a load of rubbish, isn't it? And I kind of know that, but you've always got to see, because this one might be the one. And I sort of grew up in a town called Stoke-on-Trent in the 80s in Thatcher's Britain, which was horrible, really horrible. My dad was a builder, and we used to go to work with my dad, and I just remember thinking, I can't do this. Is this life? It's either unemployment or working on a building site in freezing cold conditions. Just wasn't for me, you know. So quickly, I probably made the mistake a lot of young people made, which is like, I love music, therefore I want to be a musician, and that's what I'm going to do. Or I love films, and I'm going to be a filmmaker. And you don't realise just how difficult they are, you know, as a career, as it were. So, and also back then, there was no access to cameras. So having all the desire in the world didn't mean anything, because I just had no access to kit to make films. Eventually went to university in York to do a film and television course there. And the big sort of eye-opener for me was there were cameras. I could get cameras and just wanted to get my hands on them, and maybe made loads of shorts, made them as part of the course and on our own outside the course. Then left there, reality bit once again. But then I got into bands. I was always into music as well. I'd spent probably 15 years trying to make it, I guess they put on my gravestone, failed rock star would be probably my eulogy.
We'll just put general on it now.
There you go. Yeah, general failed rock star. So left filmmaking and all that for music and playing gigs. So we did a lot of gigs a year, and I, in the back of a van and all that kind of thing. Eventually, that kind of career fell through. A record deal we had fell through, and it was sort of, horrible moments. But what I did do at the time was I had a camera, and I used to. So a few friends' bands went on to be successful in the kind of the Britpop era. So I was taking photos of them because they were kind of mates, and I got recording the local band scene in York, and got a bit of access to cameras. So did bits of video here and there. But really, it was the photography that started then. Kind of realised that ran its course, if you like, and I just wasn't making a living at it. I wasn't making enough any money really. So then moved to Teesside around the turn of the century. I did a master's degree there in something that was called computer animation, but it was basically, I guess it would be like After Effects type stuff. It was, animation, VFX, all that kind of thing. Got really into that. And then I had to generate footage to put VFX onto. So kind of like my first short film ever was an animation, actually. And it was a lot of work, a lot of effort, and took a long time to do. But I did realise when I was doing the VFX, so I did a lot of things like weather and things like that back in the day. I realised I really prefer the immediacy of film. You just turn up, hey, you say this line, and you've got a film kind of thing. So went back down that route after the animated film, and that did quite well. So that got me a kind of, I guess, a bit of exposure in the Northeast. It won an RTS award and a couple of little other awards. Then I got onto a scheme that was run by Northern Film and Media at the time, where they put you together with a writer, put directors together with writers. It was called Stingers, and that was run by a company called Shakabuku, which is run by two guys who became good friends of mine, Scott Mann and Nick Roundtree, and we all made films for that scheme. And luckily for me, my film did really well on that scheme. So it got picked up by the BFI and put onto their DVD and kind of got screened around the world, really, and festivals in this country and everywhere else. That gave me another kind of leg up, if you like. And Shakabuku finished and everybody went their separate ways, kind of. And Scott went on to direct a film. He raised money and directed his first film called The Tournament, which did really well years ago, and became, certainly for somebody at my level, kind of a player, really, somebody I've got ultimate respect for. And he kind of went on to greater and bigger things, and he always kept his faith in me. There was like a small team of us. There was a writer, there was myself, there was Scott, there was a few people around who were mates, I guess, essentially. But, it's like the Smiths, don't you hate it when your friends get successful? But I could ride those coattails for a while. We ended up writing a script, me and Jonathan Frank, where we basically saw a documentary about sleep paralysis and kind of thought, why has nobody done this before? This is terrifying. And going into the script more and more, we realised actually there's a lot more to this sleep paralysis. For a start, everybody gets it, or loads of people do. Have you ever had it yourselves? Have you heard of it?
No, I've heard of it, but no. I have problems sleeping generally, so I don't have sleep paralysis. But I guess I
don't sleep, right?
Yeah, I sleep about 3 or 4 hours a night at best.
Whenever you do it, whenever I've done a talk, and let's say there's 40 people in a room, somebody, like 3 or 4 people, will have gone, yeah, I've had it. Mm-hmm. In the course of writing it, I found out my mum had it, my brother had it, one of the producers has it, it's ongoing. It's basically terrifying, But what happens is, so we went to the Royal Victoria in Newcastle and talked to the sleep expert there, and he was saying, he said he thinks everybody gets it, but we just don't remember it. But 40% of the population do, mm-hmm. And when you sleep, I'll probably get the science a bit wrong, but when you sleep, your body releases a hormone that effectively paralyzes your body. So if you dream that you're running, your legs are not kicking. So it stops you enacting your dreams while you're asleep. If you wake up while this hormone is still floating around, you get trapped in between awake and asleep. So if I had sleep paralysis now, I would see you two and I would see everything that I'd see in this room, but there'd be other things that come in to the room, right. Bizarre things. And again, through lots of research, we found out that people all over, wherever there's human beings, there's sleep paralysis. It's a very common thing. Mm. But a good percentage of people that get sleep paralysis see the same entity, which is a skinny old hag, climbs up your bed, puts her hands around your neck, and then he kind of bursts awake. And we even spoke to, there was a guy, Professor Hufford, who devoted his life to this. And he said, who am I to say if a guy in Canada, a guy in Newcastle or Sunderland, and somebody in Japan, if they see the same skinny hag, who am I to say that's not supernatural? There's no answer. He couldn't think what the answer might be for it. So we immediately thought, why has nobody done this as a horror film before? This is perfect, But in the end, the script took 7 years to get right because there's a good reason why. And that's because if you're having sleep paralysis, at the height of your scare, the most scared you're going to be, you're basically paralyzed. It's about as uncinematic as you can get. There's no chases. There's nothing going after you. Yeah. So Nightmare on Elm Street dealt with it, but did it in a different way. We'll go into the dream realm, and then kind of Freddy Krueger chasing you about. So it took a lot of work to kind of make that feel more cinematic.
To work out how to put something that's so scary for people in their minds and then the body's on the screen for everybody else to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the shot is somebody lying still on a bed.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do you know what I mean? That is it. So once we'd figured out bits and that, we did like phone tests and all the kind of things while we were writing, and the characters changed. But basically, through Scott and his company and another producer called James, they kind of worked together at the time. We finally got the script into shape. He was very kind of upward thinking, was Scott. So he was already like messing around in Hollywood, got us meetings in Hollywood, and eventually got the green light, and we were good to go. Yeah, it was a good budget to sort of like, I remember getting the call when they said, "Okay, we've green lit, we're doing it." I'm like, "Yeah." Oh fuck, I've got to do this. Shit. You know what I mean? And it became really quite scary kind of a prospect. But that's sort of what got me up to
That's how you got to do Mara, yeah.
That's how I got to do Mara, yeah.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
Okay.
I think if we just go back a little bit and talk about the short films that you've done, obviously you had a lot of festival success there. So was it Emily and the Baba Yaga that you had?
That's the first one we did, yeah.
One, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you want to sort of talk us through, I guess, your experience of going through the festivals now? Because that's a lot. I think something a lot of newer filmmakers are sort of trying their hand at getting into festivals.
Yeah, well, I think certainly nowadays the festival world is very different from what it was back then. I think festivals, well, how do you define festival success? Appearing at festivals or winning prizes, because winning prizes is super difficult. Appearing at festivals now is just super expensive. They're all fleecing you for money. So I think you've got to really choose well. But we had the advantage that we won this RTS award, which put us upon a platform really and gave the film considerable legs. So we got quite well accepted into kind of bigger festivals. Again, round that we went to Cannes, we went to Los Angeles, the big ones, Edinburgh and London, all around here. So I think, is this a question you'd like me to answer for up-and-coming filmmakers now, like about festival and?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I think it's mega important because it's easy just to blow loads of money and say we've been at 20 festivals, but are they going to help you? So I think maybe what a lot of sort of beginner filmmakers, the mistake they might make is more is better, or just, you know what I mean? Because it's a super buzz when you get to a festival, and especially when you go to it and you see your film on a big screen and people clap. It's kind of what filmmaking's about, really. It's all about that. But you've got to be very careful. I think you've got to be maybe mercenary and think about what's it going to do for me? Is this going to help my career? So you need to pick and choose your festivals carefully. Think of, is your graduation film going to do well at, an Oscar watched or whatever festival, or are you just kind of wasting your time and money on it? Mm-hmm. And to be very careful about which ones you do in what order. So the prestigious ones, they might say, well, we want exclusive rights. If it doesn't premiere at our festival, you ain't coming to ours. So be careful before you put it in the tiny village festival, because you want to get into something. Whereas if it's the Edinburgh Festival, which is quite prestigious, or it certainly was back in the day, that might not accept your film for another year. Have you got the patience to wait a year to make that premiere, But I would encourage all filmmakers to get their work in front of an audience, however you can, really.
And I would encourage all filmmakers to submit to Terror on Tyne. It's certainly not a rip-off as a festival. It's very cheap. And you get lots of exposure. Probably you might make it big after that festival, I would imagine.
Anyway. I would agree. I think, particularly if you're doing horror films, the horror community, I always think horror's, well, it's not anymore, actually. I usually think horror was like heavy metal.
Yeah, it was.
It's never number one in the charts, and it's never going to be. But the audience is solid, and they're great, and they're supportive. And I don't think horror needs budget. I don't think horror needs stars. I know as a horror member of, fully paid up member of the horror community, that my question is, what horror film's on this week? Not like, is Brad Pitt in a horror film, and what's the most? And I also totally believe that we're in a golden age of horror right now. I just think it's killing it. There's a new avenue open, which is not festivals, which is the whole YouTube thing.
Yeah.
I think you could do a whole podcast on Obsession and the whole package about how it came about, who directed it, the film itself. I think it's a fantastic example of what can be done, because the tools to make this, they're all around us, aren't they? They're so easy to do. And in the end, kit and budget and stars, they're not as important as craft, skill, a good knowledge of horror films and what works and all that kind of thing. I don't know if I answered your question there, sorry.
No, I think
Duncan. Yeah, definitely. You definitely did, and we got a chance to plug our festival on our own podcast, which I'm sure isn't a conflict of interest. But...
Although I will say, Duncan said Terror on Time is cheap. I prefer the term financially accessible, because cheap just makes it sound like low quality, and I think we're not that. So just put that out there.
Definitely get your film at Terror on the Tyne. Definitely do that, because you're in a horror community, watching it on a big screen. Yeah. That's what life's all about.
Definitely. But I do take what you said about, like, there's a lot of festivals out there that are trying to just, like, they just want your fee, and they'll be like an online festival, or they'll, you know what I mean? Or it'll just be something that doesn't really have much weight. Whereas, like, for us with running the festival, it's all about, like, obviously giving the filmmaker that exposure, seeing it in a cinema, on a big cinema screen, but also just having, like, a night to celebrate, like, where you've got a bunch of creatives, in the same room, celebrating and, like, just, like,
and supportive. They're so supportive of our community.
Massive.
Again, like, it's like the heavy metal ones that they look like grebos and they're going to rob your granny, but they're absolutely lovely. And the same with the horror. I think probably watching horror chills you out, doesn't it? Maybe it stops us being murderers.
Yeah,
that's right. I think. But yeah, I think, like, not to go on about us for too long, but I think festivals like ours, you've got different levels you can get in on. You've got, your first time filmmakers, or people making films on smartphones, or whether mixed in with more experienced horror filmmakers. You might go to one where there's somebody doing a Q&A there or something. But I think that's it, isn't it? You're looking at what it's going to do for you, rather than just, it is exciting though, isn't it? When you just
absolutely, yeah.
And stuff,
and also, like, networking. All these people in this room are probably connected in some way or other to filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And if you see a film at the Tyne Festival, what's it called? Sorry,
Terror on Tyne.
Yeah, edit me out there. Yeah, if you see a film at Terror on the Tyne that you really like the camera work of it, then go talk to who did the cameras. Do you know what I mean? Get them on your next film, and learn like that. I think things like this are really great for filmmakers, and to give them that buzz of being, I've got a laurel on my poster. I went to this Star and Shadow cinema, saw my film on the big screen. Mm-hmm. Are you proud of me, Dad?
But yeah, so I guess obviously you did, like, as you kind of told your sort of journey up to, like, from the shorts up to getting, like, basically into Hollywood, like, with Mara. How long did it take from, like, getting greenlit to actually being, like, on set, and what was that sort of stage like? What was that process like?
That was quick, really.
Right, okay.
Once it was greenlit, it took off.
Right.
It was sort of, slow, quick, slow. Right. So the writing took years to do. Like I say, about 7 years to get it right, and that's a roller coaster of ups and downs, and so you become a bit more resilient. But once it's greenlit, once we got Olga attached, really. That's the green light. Yeah. That sets the budget level. Okay, she's going to need this much money. That's your budget for the film. So like I say, after 7 long, slow years, and I always compared it to a pendulum that you want to catch, and it comes out the darkness and swings towards you, and you just go like this, and it's gone away again, and it swings away for another 6 months, and you think, oh God, I'm done now, and then suddenly, just as you reach rock bottom, it swings again, and you have another kind of bite at it. So, I guess if new filmmakers are going to have an experience anything like mine, I think probably the biggest thing you need to learn is resilient. Just stick with it, because you know what I mean. The longer you stick with it, and the more shorts you do, and the more bits you do, you kind of, the competition fritters away a bit more and a bit more. But once it was greenlit, there was a schedule. This is when a diary's free. This is when we can shoot. I think I can't remember. It was less than 6 months, I think, between green light and going over for pre-production. So I remember pre-production was in March, and we started shooting pretty much the next month after. Grueling shoot at 18 days. So it was
no time at all, is it really?
Yeah, it was hellish. Really, yeah, it was difficult, especially as a first time. Too fast for me, really. Of course, I would love to have had more time to do it, but yeah, pretty quick, really.
Yeah. How did you stay resilient then in those 7 years between but I guess when you're writing it or when you were waiting for it to kind of come to fruition, how did you did you keep creating other things? Were you working on other projects? Or
kept at the writing because it was always dangling there. There was never a no. It was more like for 7 years of going, you send it off for notes, you send your script off, and then 2 months later you get some notes. So you wait 2 months and you think, it's not happening, Then you come back with notes, and then so you have to address the notes. How do we stay resilient? Because I believed in the project. I believed in the project, and I probably arrogantly believed I'm going to do this. You know what I mean? I'm putting in my hours of work, and it's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? So maybe kind of willed it into existence to some degree.
I mean, is that a really important part of it then? Is if you're going to go and do something, you've got to really believe in what you're doing because it's going to be hard.
Yeah. I don't think filmmaking is ever going to be easy or quick. I don't think anybody's going to walk out of a university and direct a film next week. And you kind of that's what I thought would happen. Okay, I've made all these shorts and whatever. What do you do when you graduate? I'm waiting by the phone, waiting for somebody to call me to direct a film. It's not going to happen. So I guess over the 7 years, I learned to write a little bit. I'm not the world's greatest writer, but learned to generate material that I would like to direct. So I guess I'd probably say I'm a director writer, if you like. And myself and the guy who wrote it with me, Jonathan, kind of cut our teeth in those 7 years. Eventually, we kind of split off, and I went to straight direction. He went more to straight writing. But yeah, I think it's just keeping the faith. The idea was solid. People liked it. This is probably an important thing, actually. Mara had an appeal because I kept thinking, I was just going for we'd fly over every so often for a meeting in Hollywood, and we'd be in a Hollywood studio, and I think, how am I? I'm living in Sedgefield in the northeast. How am I sat on Sunset Boulevard in a meeting with a Hollywood studio? And also you realise in Hollywood everyone's a filmmaker. Everybody wants the waitresses, the postman. You know what I mean? Everybody is. I was like, how have they ended up with this scrote from Sedgefield sat in the room trying to make a film? And the guy said, there's just not many good scripts that have an idea that reaches out. So it is important to tell a good story, but I think the thing that kind of pricked their ears up was that 40% of the population get sleep paralysis. So this could start a conversation, because we would bill it like this when we were pitching that, 40% of any audience is going to say, I've had that. I know what that is. Do you know what I mean? So it had an extra a bit of press that you could have attached to it, sort of thing. Yeah.
And they've also got a guaranteed 40% of people who are going to be scared of this film regardless.
Yeah, right? And it's like the whole sleep paralysis thing is so interesting, really, and so rich for horror, because some academic people who've studied these think that sleep paralysis is the source of all myths and all legends. It's shaped by where you're from and where you are in history. So they think in the Middle Ages, if you saw a skinny hag climbing up your bed, well, it's a witch. After Roswell, it became alien abduction. So it's culturally bound. It's something that's a very common, a universal human experience. And the stories, when we read so many people's stories and talked to people who had it, that's frightening. You know what I mean? It's horror that kind of writes itself in a way. So we tried to base all the scares that were in the movie on what actual people had described to us, which has helped us along.
Yeah, give be a bit of a blueprint for how they're going to go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, with that, I don't know if it's about time.
It's about time. It's about time for what is maybe going to become a recurring segment on the show.
All right. Okay.
Go on then, Paul.
So dumb. So dumb.
Oh no.
Well, it's your thing.
You have to say it. It's Duncan's deep dive. He wants to do this thing where he.
I don't want to do a thing.
Own it, guys. You should own it. I'll do Duncan's deep dive, so long as it's not dodgy or.
Because it sounds really dodgy.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I want to get like a jingle when I'm in the edit. I might get like some sort of jingle, things like Duncan's deep dive or like a voiceover.
There you go.
Well,
Put some echo on and reverb. Yeah.
Make it,
You want to do the work.
I'll surprise you. Listen back.
You know
to
what
the
you can
episode.
do? I'll give you a technique here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know it, just tell me. But get his voice saying Duncan's deep dive. Take some of the treble out so his voice goes deeper. Reverse it, right?
Oh.
Reverb. Re-reverse it. And he goes, Duncan's deep dive.
Oh, there we go.
There's a little project for
We'll
you.
get that after. We'll pick that up after. We'll get the recording. And
You need to stick that in like seamlessly.
Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
cut all of this conversation out. We don't want to show how the sausage is made. You know.
I 1000%.
I don't like Duncan's deep dive and sausages.
I guarantee you're going to leave your sausage all over this.
It's gonna be all it is.
Anyway, guys, I'm off.
No, so I mean, thinking about Mara and the things you've talked about leading up to it, you've talked about sleep paralysis, but it sort of struck me. There's a couple of things about it thematically. I think first, it follows a similar pattern to a lot of those curse type films like Ringu or It Follows, whereby they're almost having to learn what the process is, what the steps are to try and beat this thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, was that something that was in your head when you were writing it, or?
It was, yeah. So myself and Jono were around when like J-horror had its moment, and we were kind of obsessed, really. I'd say Ringu is right up there with one of my favourite kind of films. So that was very much in our mind. It Follows came later, so they ripped me off. Whatever. So the pitch really, I mean, this is probably a quite quick answer. The pitch we had was we wanted a Western story structure because that's what kind of Hollywood understands, but with more of the tone of J-horror type of thing, And that probably in the end was its strength and its weakness. Maybe it was a bit too close to the bone to that kind of film.
And I think that Mara character actually does lean into a lot of that J-horror in terms of
visuals.
Yeah.
It totally does, yeah.
The other thing I was thinking in terms of the theme, and it's mentioned in the film quite a bit, so I'm not that clever working this one.
I don't know. I'm desperately trying to think what the theme is now.
But it's about sleep paralysis, but at the same time, it's also about guilt. It seems to be the large theme of the film is about dealing with guilt, that's unresolved guilt that's not your fault.
Yeah.
And I think you see a lot of that with Kate, the main character, played by Olga Kurylenko, where the first time you see her is obviously just after the initial murder scene that you've seen. Well, the death scene, I guess.
Yeah.
Where the husband's on the bed and looks a bit grotesque. It's it's scary. You can use that, by the way, if you want to sell the film. I know they just have me going, "Oh, it's scary."
Put it on the poster, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, it's scary." Duncan from some podcast. But yeah, the first time you see her, she's sort of really well sort of put together in terms of smartly dressed. She looks like an investigator. Obviously, she's a psychologist, but she looks like an investigator. She's got her hair all tied up nicely.
Yeah.
As the film progresses and she sees something and she gets that guilt in, it's almost like she starts to unravel. It's the story of her unraveling throughout the film and how she deals with that. Was that in terms of how you put that across to the audience, both as a writer and a director? What sort of things were you sort of keying into to try and get that across with her and also with all the characters? So
with her, you mean sort of physically with her, just on the set on the day?
Yeah, in terms of how were you dealing with the actors?
So for how was it dealing with the actors
the actors and the cinematography? I feel like everything knits together in this film in ways to create this sort of a feel.
So I guess step back and look at the wider thing. So, and again, this is good for any up-and-coming filmmakers, that I think everything you do needs to point to character. So the costume, the shoes, the apartment, Do you know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. You need to, like you can in real life, you can sort of, I can get a sense of who you guys are just from looking at you, from what you're wearing now. Do you know what I mean?
Sorry about that.
Yeah, apologies.
Yeah, sorry. Danish cowboys go camping, yeah.
That was the original title for the podcast.
Oh, really? So for Kate, so I suppose, first off, I was raised Catholic. So Catholic guilt was always hammered into me. Yeah, don't worry, I'm totally lapsed now. So yeah, so guilt was a big thing. Also, it was a thing about belief as well. Do you believe in this? So Kate, being that kind of criminal psychologist or whatever her job was called, it was about her method of kind of helping people out was, whatever they say, I'm going to believe it. I'm going to believe it because it's true to them or it's real to them. So it was about belief and guilt. But what we wanted for her was she had no emotional life. So her life on the surface, career was success and money. So her apartment needed to be like that. But she'd had no emotional life. So I kind of interpreted that as director as, she's going to have no colour in her life. So her costume's going to be white, grey, black. Her apartment needs to look kind of IKEA, clean. Everything on the surface looks perfect, but it's not. It's a cold exterior, and she had no emotional life. So then you sort of compare that against Dougie, who's played by Craig Conway. We found an old shack for him. He had ripped up clothes on. And he kind of, if you stood them two next to each other, you can instantly see who they are. Or if you took a photo of where they live, you can instantly tell who they are. I think, does that answer your question?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Definitely, yeah. And speaking of Dougie, because I've got a few notes on Dougie as well.
Okay, yeah.
When we're talking about his shack, did you have a lot of fun, by the way, with the set design for that one? Because all those pictures on that wall, that looked like it took a while.
That was my team did that.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
The shack was no fun at all because we looked at a few shacks because of not having much time, no studio. It was all shot on location, so we had people out and about finding places to go. So, of course, I fell in love with that shack. I thought, right, this is it, But we found it had black mold or something that needed treating, so we had to rejig the schedule while they got rid of that. But once that was got rid of, kind of the lion's share of the set design was already there, really. And then what we did was we just printed off loads and loads of bits of paper and things and pictures, and all the set designers and the art department stuck them all up on the walls. So I don't know whether they had fun doing it because it would have probably taken a while, but I think it looked good because it looked textured and layered and all the rest of it. And the idea was, it needs to look like his mind. This scatterbrained, he's only sleeping for 20 minutes, nothing's, he can't get a grip on anything, but he's done his homework, and he's the one, in the end, he's the most fucked up character, but he knows the score better than anybody, really.
He's the only one who really knows what's going on.
He does, yeah, and it's driven him nuts, kind of, yeah. So Craig was perfect casting for that, really.
And if we can go on to Mara specifically now, we'll go on to the characterization in a little bit and talk about the acting choices there. But with how Mara's introduced to Kate, because obviously other characters by this point have told us about Mara, start to learn the myth that she goes to the session with everybody else who's got the sleep paralysis. But in terms of her, so you've got the first time she sees Mara is an interesting one. I think it's the one under the table. Is that right? Yeah.
There's a little one before where she's hidden in the corner under a hat stand. I think that's the first one.
That's right, yeah.
And it's just a little slow pan, and then you see something move in the corner.
Well, that was what I was going to ask about, because you see that, and then even with the table one, I think there's a slow tilt upwards or something.
Yeah.
And it takes, because after being like, oh, okay, I watched it a few times after, just back to back these little scenes. And it was really interesting how Mara appears on screen, because she's there for a bit before you see her, before you focus on her. And there was a deliberate choice to do that in terms of the cinematography, and also where Mara is in the frame, so the blocking as well. Can you sort of tell, because it felt like there was a progression with it as well. Can you talk through?
Yeah, there was definite progression. One thing we wanted definitely in the script stage was, because we felt like a lot of horror films kind of lose the horror in the third act, because it's just like, we've just got to go and solve the puzzle now. So all the creepy stuff's gone and it's just racing to, go hug a skeleton or bury or something or whatever. So we thought we want to preserve scary to the end. So that was our end point, was like the big reveal is the last shot of the film. That's what we want. So then you can sort of track backwards and we show a bit more here and a bit more there. And it was we were definitely inspired by, there was a craze on the internet a while ago where when you see it, you'll shit your pants. And it's a photo and then there's a pair of eyes in the corner. So we went for that kind of effect. And then in terms of cinematography, because these characters are paralyzed to the bed, when they're in the paralysis state and we've got their POV, it's only pans or zooms. The camera doesn't move through the set because it's their POV and they're paralyzed. So for example, in the table one, we lit it and got it sorted so that you couldn't really see more amongst the chair legs and the table legs. Then we had that slow zoom in, and then it moves. And it was the same for the kind of the hat stand one. It's like you can't see. Hopefully, you can't see anything until there's movement.
Yeah.
And the slow zoom tells you where to look. But it's a technique that I think is really good, which is kind of, I call it making the audience lean forward. Paranormal Activity did it really well when we went to see that at the cinema. The first shot where he puts the camera on a tripod and them two are asleep and it just holds. The first time it's on, it just holds and holds. And then you can sort of feel the audience getting stressed and they're going, where am I meant to be looking? What is there something? Where? And their eyes are going, and you can feel the stress build, and then it ends. They're like, nothing happened. Was I supposed to have seen something? Then, of course, it keeps returning back to that shot, and you're already primed. And every time it comes back, something else happens. So they were some of the basic sort of cinematography decisions that we made. I'm a big fan of stillness in horror. I think anything that's unnatural is scary. So a camera on a tripod for a little bit too long, you start to feel like, what's going on here? Do you know what I mean? So I think the scariest thing for me is still, silent and dark. Silence is scary because you're never really in silence, and the dark obviously is scary because what the hell's lurking in the shadows. So if you can get a frame where the stuff in the frame to send the audience's eye, but you're not revealing anything obvious yet, you get them to work and they're sort of going, where should I look?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned a couple of films there, but I think like things like the Thing or like the 2020 Invisible Man have that negative space thing as well, where they sort of hold you.
Yeah, fantastic.
You're looking around going, what am I meant to be looking at here? What's here? But I think the other thing you've done really interestingly with those bits is when you do flip it around and you see Kate, there's a lot of close-ups and extreme close-ups on her eyes and things like that. And I'm guessing, like you said, how do you film someone lying down, not moving, right?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I was going to say there was what we did for that, and we did tests for this up in Newton Aycliffe, just at my friend's kind of office space. We did a few tests where it's probably, I don't know if it was at the beginning. It was certainly at the beginning of my getting to grips with After Effects at the time, but we'd just do like if I was filming you, say, Duncan, and handheld. I would always tell anybody on a camera, if you're doing handheld, try and hold the camera still. As soon as people do this, it starts to get shaky and sick. If I'm just holding a camera like this, there's a bit of natural movement in my arm, especially if I put them out long.
Yeah.
So your shot, particularly on a big screen, is a bit like this. So what we did was put a box round the eyes. I think this is how we did it. And then we stabilised that. So your eyes stay in the same position on the screen, but the rest of the frame twists round it. And it worked best in close-ups, so that's why there's a lot of close-ups of that. And of course, eyes are eyes, aren't they? And it's Olga Kurilenko. I mean, she's absolutely stunningly beautiful on camera woman. But that was one of our techniques for getting over that. Okay, we're in the weird world now, so the kind of just looks subtly weird. The camera does, you know.
I think as well with in terms of how she's framed. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but maybe. It
sounds like you're far more intellectual than me, to be honest. Yeah.
This is the deep part of the deep dive.
Oh, this is the deep dive.
Just
Okay.
Duncan's dive, otherwise.
Right, okay, it's too deep for me. Where are you?
We're diving real deep right now.
Yeah.
No, how she's framed a lot of the time, it seems to be almost like a prison. And I feel like, is that to do with the fact that when you've got sleep paralysis, physically you're desperate to move, but you just can't. So I think she's in the bath. When we get, there's a couple of scenes before it, she gets to the bath, her mouth's submerged for a lot of that sequence, which is really interesting. Yeah. So it's anything to stress the audience out. Mm-hmm. Another 1%, let's do it. Another 2% here, well, let's do that. And I think there was another scene where I think it's the bedroom scene where you can see. She's almost framed with the shadows of the bed slats of the headboard. It almost looks like sort of prison bars or something. So
when we're behind the headboard.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, that's, of course, it's like it is the prison bar, and we know she's paralysed, but it's also for the reverse, so we can see how looming Mara is over it, and to capture it is a really great performance. So the amount of people who say the CGI was really great in that, I was like, there's no CGI in it. There's no CGI. It's all performance,
Well, I want to talk about Dougie's death scene in a minute, but while we're talking about the character of Mara and the performance there, can you you go into the actor who portrayed Mara and how you worked with that actor?
So we watched Wreck. Me and my friend Jono, the writer, we watched Wreck. Loved the film. Absolutely, top 10 horror of all time. Especially loved that end scene that we were like, okay, this is genuinely scary. And what the hell is that bloody thing walking around in a big nappy, just dragging hammers around? How the hell do you do that, And it was like, that's who we want. Whoever that is, I want that, And eventually, I suppose, as they say in film, my people got in touch with his people and all that kind of stuff. So I couldn't have been more excited to know that we've got him. It took a while to sort it out because he's in Spain and we were shooting in America, and obviously there's flights and hotels, and they were like, why can't we just use somebody down the road? And there was all that argument, but it's one of the kind of the battles that I did win that I really do. I was really lucky to win that. But then once he got there, just because it was such a tight shoot, there was no lead-in time. There's not rehearsal time. They're here for 3 days. Off you go. They're here for so I spent a lot of time with him. Kind of after a day's shooting, we went back. We had some food, went back to his hotel, and just did some rehearsal. I've still got rehearsal footage on my iPad, where I just wanted to see what he could do. And first of all, kind of my assumption was this is a monster guy. He just does monsters. Do you know what I mean? So go over there and be a monster kind of thing. But after the first session with him, the first kind of hotel session with him, which sounds apt for Duncan's deep dive, I realised he was bringing a lot more to it, bizarrely. So he was going, well, it's feminine. It's a feminine monster. So I'm going to bring this feminine, and he did a feminine pose, and then he did this amazing thing. If you remind me, I can give you the footage where he did his. I was here with I just shooting on my iPad, and he was laying down there, so out of sight, and his hand would come up over the bed. I swear it looked like an alien octopus. What he can do with his fingers, and it would go round for ages, and it'd say things like, "She's looking for information," and I'd be like, "Oh man, okay, this is like way beyond what I expected." It even made us change the costume. So it was going to be a grotty nightgown type of costume that was vaguely see-through because his figure's like just crazy, kind of crazy looking figure. And he said, "Do you mind if we cut the back out of my costume?" I'm like, "Yeah, why? Why have you?" He's like, "There's a lot of information in my back." And then he was going like this, and it was like, "Let's cut the back of his costume off. That looks frigging amazing, So he knows he's got a thing called Marfan, which is a syndrome where you grow really tall, all your fingers and your toes kind of grow long, and there's no body fat. He's like 2 meters tall, so he's a really distinct looking guy. He's he can bend the sort of top thing of his finger, so he's got mad control over all his joints, and it looks like they're going backwards and all that kind of thing. He can do like really good Michael Jackson moves. He was doing all that. And my basic thing was, we just need to make the most of him, shine a light behind him so we can see through the bloody costume, because what he does is incredible, really. And then for that final, kind of the final reveal, if you like, at the end of the film, that was a bit more involved, because along with Marfan, it means he can only work certain hours. He's not super strong. He doesn't mean he needs rest and support and all that. So we had a rig built that meant we kind of chopped up his final walk, if you like, towards Kate's demise into bits. So the first bit is just him doing his creepy walk. Then we rigged him up. We had a rig built up in the hospital set where it was just strings hanging down, and he was harnessed so that he could unnaturally lean forward. And that was the next bit. And then he stood, and then he was hoisted up, so he kind of levitated, and then he could tip up forward and then fly at the camera kind of thing. So that was more complicated. But yeah, it was all based around his performance. As soon as he got there, he was already beyond what I thought. My ideas looked terrible compared to what he could do and what he was suggesting, you know.
I suppose that's part of being a director, isn't it? You get the actors in who can give you that extra.
Yeah, surround yourself with experts. And it makes your life a lot easier.
And I think you've touched on it there in terms of having someone who's a physical performer rather than using CGI.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of films when they get to that final third, especially horror films, where if they're using CGI, all of a sudden you're a bit turned off as a horror fan, because you're like, well, I can see this is not real.
Yeah, as soon as you see it, it's gone, isn't it? As soon as you know it's CGI, I don't know, there's something in your brain that switches off. It's not even a decision, is it? Because you think, well, you mentioned The Thing. Compare the original Thing to the remake. There's nothing ostensibly wrong with the remake. It just feels CGI, so it feels less visceral, or it just feels less somehow, even though they did an amazing job on it. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with it, but it's just that last percent in it. Maybe it's the uncanny valley. Maybe it's the opposite of that. I don't know. The canny valley. The uncanny hill.
The thing that kills me about that is they shot all of that stuff practically and replaced it afterwards for the remake of the thing, like the one that's like the prequel.
Yeah,
they did it all physically, and then they cut it all out and went and did CGI.
They did it,
wouldn't you?
And it was, I know it's such a shame. It was like,
and they did the same with Mama and Javier.
Oh,
Mama,
really?
He shot that,
Yeah.
and then they covered him in CGI, and it kind of feels like it's more showing off the VFX than actually scaring the audience. You know, because I'm sure it would have been scary without it.
Well, I think as well it's undermining the actors, isn't it? Because obviously a big part of an actor is their face, their body, their expressions, what they can do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I guess that's for another day, that
Yes.
one. But yeah, getting back to Dougie's death, just briefly, and also sort of the big finale with Mara. As you say, even the bath scene, you're coming over through a shower curtain there.
Yeah.
Bath curtain, I guess it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know what the term is.
Curtain.
There's a curtain there anyway, yeah. And so you see a little bit more in terms of you can make out some features, but you're not really seeing it. When we get to Dougie, you're pretty much seeing Mara all in then. But what I think's interesting is we've still got Kate framed out of things. She's going through sleep paralysis at the same time as Dougie, bless him's finally getting some sleep. He's finally having a rest.
Yeah.
But we've got her framed outside. We've got a lovely frame. Don't touch the microphone, Duncan. We've got a lovely frame of Dougie getting killed here. And it's almost like a painting in front of her. She's watching it. She can't do anything about it. But again, that's like flipping the prison thing around. And Mara walks straight past her. Out of focus. You've got Kate's face in focus. Like, that's a really beautiful sequence that you've got going on there.
Yeah, a complex sequence, because it's like, all right, well, how would you do? Whose point of view are we seeing this from? And it all comes from her point of view, but because she's paralysed, she can't look at Dougie, so he can't be on him. So we did it through that kind of two-way mirror. Mm-hmm. And if you Google a painting, I think it's called The Nightmare by a painter called Fuseli. And it's an old painting from 1700s, I think, or maybe 1800s, of sleep paralysis, where there's a demon crouched on a victim's chest. So that's where we recreated that artwork, that painting from there. So funny you say it's quite painterly, because we kind of nicked it from a painting. And this was another thing that helped sell the movie while we were pitching, is this is a long history. It's not a modern thing. It's not ghosts and all this. It's kind of as old as mankind itself. So yeah, it's that complicated scene. The death of a beloved, certainly I loved the character, but yeah.
And I think one other thing, Paul, sorry, because I know you're wanting to get on.
No, it's good.
Is it Paul's deep dive?
No, this is all good. It's good stuff.
But we've talked about how Mara's portrayed as an actor, but I think you got Craig Conway doing something different, Olga Kurylenko doing something slightly different as well. They're all acting, and they're all doing different forms of the same sort of guilt and fear, and Mara being a big representation of that. But something else, we've talked about cinematography, we've talked about actors, but is the score that you've got going on. I know obviously you're a very musical guy, like you've said. You've done a lot of composing, I think, for
I've done in the past,
yeah. And I noticed when I was watching it, Mara, you don't see Mara first, you hear Mara first, right? You don't.
Yeah. The sound was important. The sound of Mara was important for me. Yeah.
Yeah. There's audio cues as to when Mara's coming, right? Which again is going to get those hairs on the back of your neck.
That's the idea. Yeah.
So you just talk a bit about the sound, and also how you've got everything working together. Because I think you can be an expert on one thing, and I guess, like you say, surround yourself with experts. But you've got to be aware of all these different things and how they knit together, right?
Yeah. So again, due to budget and time constraints, I'd like to have spent more time on those things. So bizarrely enough, the score itself was kind of done by a guy, one of the producers who was also a composer called James Barker. It was basically go away and write the score. So I didn't have as much influence on that as you might think. But it all worked out. We did. I mean, I spent the shoot with him, so we could discuss things. You know what I mean? And we were all under significant time pressure, so it couldn't be too picky. Do you know what I mean about all that? But luckily, James did nail it. He got it right. In terms of Mara's sound, this is more where I came in. So it was always described that entity as a skinny, emaciated hag. So I thought, okay, dry. So I spent time again in Aycliffe, in that same place I've mentioned before, with a wicker basket, just going. And I think, but the sound was actually done. We did the sound mix was done in Hollywood, the actual one, and I couldn't go over for all of it. There was just not money for it. So it was kind of, I was sent dailies and sent whatever scenes and whatever. And they used my wicker basket almost like temp score. Do you know what I mean? This is the type of thing I want when she lifts up and all that kind of thing. But I think for me, and one of the bigger lessons I learned in Mara is horror is, at least, I would say maybe 60% sound, because kind of almost like, if you were, let's say an example, if you were here on your own, you got locked in and you're getting scared and it's night and you're on your own and everything's pitch black, any sound you hear is terrifying, isn't it? One, a rolling sound or footsteps, your brain goes, this is the worst thing ever, I'm scared to death. And I think that's what happens, that's what should happen in good horror. So there's have you seen it's a really old film. I'm not a huge fan of older films, but there's one from 1963 called The Haunting.
Oh, yeah.
That's all in sound. And that's still scary. I still think that would be scary to young audiences. Whereas something like The Wolfman from the old days, it's not going to scare anybody these days. It looks like makeup and blah, blah, blah. But sound, it's important. It's a bit like that leaning forward thing. It sets off your imagination. If I make a creaking sound out there and you're trapped alone, what you imagine is out there. It's kind of going to be different to what you imagine. But in both cases, it's going to be the scariest. Do you know what I mean? It's going to go to a scary place, kind of. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. And just to round it up, I guess you've talked about learning there. Are there any things that you talk about time as well? Any things you particularly do differently, or any things that you think went really well for you?
So, oh gosh, okay. So I'm definitely proud of the achievement. I kind of did it. I got my goal. I would like doing a second film to be a lot easier. Again, we're just in talks now for another kind of a thriller horror film. Mm-hmm. Great that I got to work with Olga, to work with a sort of Hollywood actor, really. Yeah. In the end. Very pleased I got to work with Javier, who became a friend, and he was quite a crazy guy, really. He was a very fun guy, very much not like the things he depicts on the screen. Right. Learned a lot of very valuable lessons that I'm kind of dying to put into my next film now. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm proud of. What was the other part?
What would you have done differently?
What I would do differently is I'd probably be more confident with the producers in terms of how to spread this budget out. I think a lot of the budget kind of went missing, really, And I think what I would like is I would like fewer crew and more days. I think the more time you can get, the better, particularly with horror. I would love to have spent more time on the actual scares, because we had other stuff worked out that we just didn't have time to do. Do you know what I mean? So they're all there in the bank, waiting to come out sometime. Yeah, I had all kind of rigs and ideas and things, and techniques that I wanted to use. So I think that, and also I wish the film was a worldwide smash hit and I was a millionaire living in Hollywood.
Well, yeah. Obviously. I mean, you've made a really good film there, and like I say, even going back and looking at those scenes and things again.
Thank you.
Just seeing how well everything's put together. It's amazing that anyone can make a feature film. To be fair, it's hard, but to make it to that standard is incredible, I think.
Yeah, so I'm super proud of that. Really, really proud of it.
You mentioned your next one. Can you tell us anything about it at all?
Well, of course I'm going to say no, aren't I? Because if there's anything to tell, I would tell it. We've got a script, we're getting notes, and we're looking at locations this weekend. It's not that far ahead though yet. We're trying to attach somebody local to it. Right. Wanted to make it a low budget local to the northeast. Amazing. I'll definitely let you know if you want when I can, but I would jinx it. No. And while somebody's hovering around a project, you better not mention it, because you might just frighten them off. And so I don't want to do that.
That's a good bit of advice for anyone out there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. That's me done. If
I
you
think
want.
that was Duncan's deep dive.
I've worked my way into the shallows. I've worked my way into the shallows. I'm getting out now. So there we go.
No, there was actually one thing. It was just because you were talking a lot about the technical sort of like the cinematography and that sort of craft of the movie, and there was one bit that I wanted to mention, but which didn't. So again, might cut this out, might not. Who knows?
Yeah.
But it was there's a scene in it where Olga's characters, she's like dreaming, and Mara's got like hands around her neck.
Oh yeah.
And then like I think as she sort of like snaps back to kind of wake up, it's like the scientist character is like kind of shaking her awake.
The what? Sorry.
I think it's like the scientist. Shaking her awake. But it seems like a very seamless transition from the shot where it's Mara's hands.
Is this in the sleep clinic?
Yes. So the shot basically seems to go from just Mara's hands being around her neck to then like just the scientist, almost like seamlessly, or it might have been like a jump cut or something.
Yes, I remember. Yeah,
and that was just a bit that I thought was really interesting, and it stood out to me because you're basically kind of seamlessly kind of blending like these two different like states of like consciousness, almost in a way that, and I don't know, and I don't want to like invoke like the thing of like Nightmare on Elm Street, which I'm sure some of the
invoke away, invoke away.
There's like a bit in Nightmare on Elm Street which that reminded me of, where I think it's Nancy she's having a nightmare about something, and she's got like bits of like shrubbery on her face, I think, and then you cut. This is in the dream, and then you cut to a close up of her on the bed, and there's this like really subtle little trick that Wes Craven did, where when she's in the bed, she's squirming around on the close up on the bed. There's little bits of shrubbery still, which then gets like pulled away, and as you go back into the wide shot, it's gone. And it's this way of like blending the dream world with the reality, and like these two mingling.
Yeah.
And that shot that you had where the arms sort of seem to change within the shot from Mara's to the sort of sleep clinician guy, just reminded me of that, and I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was a really cool shot. And that,
yeah, I think that was the idea that it's sort of like, mate, was it the Doctor all along, or was it
Yeah. It was just a great use again of like cinematography and like visual storytelling to kind of do something that an audience might not even necessarily really pick up on, like on a very conscious level. It might be something that's a bit more subconscious where they're thinking, oh, there's something a bit strange about what happened there. Like I thought it was more. I thought it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of. I mean, I guess that's a thing on a cut, isn't it? That's a clever cut. There was another one where. Sorry, am I all right to keep?
Yeah, this is great.
I was just going to say, because that's one thing we haven't actually mentioned is the edit. So yeah.
So, funnily, because I was just going to go away from the edit there.
No, but You crack on.
There was another because. I mean, this wasn't like some big production decision to not go VFX. It just wasn't. We didn't have a chance of any VFX. Forget it, And also because I'm so used to low budget filmmaking, you learn to do tricks, and I used to love doing tricks anyway. So there's a bit where I particularly like this little shot because it was a bit of a pain in the arse to get right, but it paid off in the end. So. There's a bit after she wakes up out of the bathtub and all that's gone. She looks over and you see footsteps that just disappear on the bathroom floor. That was the right pain to do because we got him in socks. We got Javier wearing socks that we wet, so we wet the socks and then he'd walk and make footprints. But it was a pain because cold water didn't work and we had to get the water. When you get the water temperature right, it works. And he walked, got out of shot, and we just left the camera rolling, probably for some minutes, as it just evaporated, and then just sped that up in the editing. I suppose it is an edit thing.
I was going to say,
there you go.
I guess we've said it's not the edit, but any of these choices, whether to cut or whether not to cut, that's part of editing the thing together. It's part of sort of putting it all together seamlessly, and I think it's those choices that make the scares, isn't it? When do you cut? When do you not cut?
Yeah, it's all about timing. Horror is definitely, it's like comedy. And sometimes 2 frames can kill a scare or can kill a joke. It just really can, And I don't know how to explain that. I don't know how, instinct or something,
I mean, I guess we're kind of winding down on the conversation now, but one other thing I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit is you also teach filmmaking.
Yeah.
How does your kind of like working with like younger, like, aspiring filmmakers, how has that kind of like changed your perspective on it, or what in your what are you looking like to bring with the experience that you've had to this like newer generation of people that are like looking to learn? I think one of the things I thought, just to kind of go on that, is obviously there's so many different components of filmmaking, but one of the things that you said that you'd wished you'd done on Mara was sort of take on the producers a bit more and challenge them a bit more about certain things, and that sort of like diplomacy, I think, is something, or like that way of like managing people and like trying to like bargain with people is something that I think is actually really important when you're making a film.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily something that people who want to make films might actually consider. So I'm not really asking a question as such, but I feel like there's something in
well,
that
there is something. So I teach film production, and I'm very not a technical person. So I mean, I can use a camera, but I'm nowhere near cinematographer. And the real skill for cinematographers isn't cameras; it's lights. Okay, so my cinematographer Mara was a grey-haired, older guy. I also remember looking at like who was winning all the cinematography Oscars, and they all had grey hair. So I thought these guys, they're doing this cutting-edge Oscar-worthy camera work because they've done it forever. Do you know what I mean? They're masters of their art, so they get picked to do the Oscar films. So my kind of style, I don't know if I've got a style of teaching. My thing about teaching is I'm not going to teach you so much about what goes on inside a camera and all this. It's more like what you're trying to tell. What's the story you're trying to tell, and what's the best way to do it? So you could do my course with an iPhone, and it's like, where you're going to put this, what's important, where you're going to put it on the frame. And also, it's sort of bizarrely enough, the better or the more professional your actors are, the less you have to direct them. Craig was an expert at Dougie. He knew more about Dougie than I knew, even though I kind of helped to write the character. So he he could bring stuff to me, and the girl who played Helena brought stuff in, and Olga, you know, always knew her lines. So the bigger your budgets and the more professional actors, maybe the less you need to direct them. But for students and beginner filmmakers, it's very much the opposite. So I try and teach, you know, I think an underconfident director will be stood by the camera always, and the actors will be over here going, I don't know what's going on here, you know what, and the set kind of falls to pieces, and they make do with shots that are probably not as good as they could be, and all that kind of thing. So definitely want to encourage them to, you know, to butt heads. You know, cameras don't answer back, actors always do. And not butt heads necessarily. You need a creative discussion. Do you know what I mean? So people managing is a big part of the direct. You know, I've said my vision. This is what I want. Right, you're on the camera. Get me that. Do you know what I mean? And you're on sound to get me that. The actors might be. So let's think of an example from Mara. So we've got Olga, Craig, Javier, all done tons of movies. Kind of know what they're doing. Do you know the guy who burns himself in it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was his first ever film.
Wow.
Straight out of acting school. Got flown down to the set. Did his part, and then had to go back. He was going to get back at 4 a.m. because he was working in a shop the next day.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what a weekend he's having. Do you know what I mean? And he was nervous. He was because it was fire and all that kind. It was external or exterior. The shot starts with a crane, so there's a huge crane. It starts up in a tree and comes down on him. Because there was fire. We had to have a fire engine and firemen giving us a talk, and you can do this and you can't do that. And he was literally like, here he is, right, you got to kneel there, did this. And I remember spending a lot of time, I said, just kneel in place. I've got to go and do some stuff. Just stay there and just think about your role. And then I did eventually kind of, and they recorded this because he was hot mic'd, you know, just saying, he was nervous. And I was like, go with it, right? You were playing a character who's about to kill himself. You're going to be pretty nervous yourself, so don't lose your nerves. Do you know what I mean? And I think for beginner directors, removing, because you're not going to get great actors maybe in your student film, so if you can remove the need for acting as much as you can, you're already going to be in a better position. So if you can casting's the most important thing really. If you can cast somebody who is that role more than somebody who's, you know, a posh boy, I'm playing somebody from a council estate, it's going to be difficult for a beginner director to direct that. So if you get somebody from a council estate, it's going to be a lot easier. And then little tricks that you can do. So one bit of advice I would give any filmmaker is a phone call. So if you're the camera and it's a phone call, and you know your actor's not sure, or you push for time or whatever, always shoot with the phone like this, because you can put in any dialogue you want later.
Yeah.
So if their performance isn't up to scratch and you've got to move on, this is the way to do it. That's something that I learned on Mara.
Yeah.
You can also, so let's say I'm having a phone call and I'm having some deep news or something, and you're not quite sure what to direct the actors to do. Tell them to do nothing, and then on action go like, right, I want you to listen to me. 43 times 7 divided by 2, and they go. And you kind of get a performance out of it because they're thinking about something else. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So there's all little tips and tricks like that, but the main one is you've got to go and talk to these people. Your actors are everything. There's nothing more important. Lighting, cameras, everything comes at secondary. You need a performance, and then the camera's going to capture that. So face them head on and go chat with them, make them feel easy. If they want Russian vodka, get them Russian vodka, you know, to create the circumstances for them to give their best work, I think.
Yeah, wow. I think that's a good...
Yeah, I would say so.
The end.
I think that was, that's like, yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much, man.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's fun.
Also, is there anywhere people can follow you on social media, anything like that? Just, you know.
So my Instagram is at evil_C_films. I'll tell you why that is as well. Evil C is Clive spelt backwards.
There we go.
I'm not evil.
Hello. Just got to get that in there just in case.
Yeah, just in case. Maybe I should be evil, you know. Yeah, one of the producers actually, he'd said to me, he said, you should go out as Evil C. You should call yourself Evil C. And I thought, well, it's a bit, really? It's like, imagine at a convention, there's Clive Tonge and there's Evil C. Where's the queue? And I think he was right, you know. But I didn't go with Evil C in the end. So maybe that's where I went wrong. Yeah.
Brilliant. You can find us on our social media. Instagram is at Terror on Tyne Film Festival, I think.
Is it? You should check it out.
We are on Instagram. Search for Terror on Tyne. I'm sure it'll come up. We're there somewhere anyway.
If you're watching the video, I'll put a little lower third thing on with it on to follow for the video version.
If you're just listening to it, never mind.
If you're listening, go fuck yourself. Screw you.
Wow.
But yeah, thanks again, Clive.
All right, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was fun. Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to or watching the Terror on Tyne podcast. We'll see you all next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
TerrorCast is a Terror on Tyne podcast made in association with CM3 Creative Motion Media Group and Runway Rooms, a place where ideas take flight. Our music was composed and performed by Tom Young.